Good evening and welcome to September's Café Muse Online. I'm Renee Garrity and I'll be your co-host tonight along with Ellen Cole and our behind the scenes technologist, Henry Crawford. In a few minutes, we'll enjoy the excellent poetry of Ellen Sazzman and Kathi Wolfe. If there's enough time after their readings, Karen Alanier will moderate a short question and answer period. It's good to see many of you again. Welcome back. And to those here for the first time, welcome. We've muted your microphones so our poets won't be interrupted during their reading by the unintended but inevitable phone that rings or dog that barks. Sometimes there's a technical glitch, so please bear with us and we'll repair it as soon as we can. If you have difficulty hearing during the reading, there's a gray box at the bottom of your screen labeled CC. Click on the gray box and choose Show Subtitles. Closed captions will appear along the bottom of the screen and transcribe the reading in real time. There's also a chat function at the bottom for any comments or questions you might have for the poets. Poets work for love, not money. There's no salary or vacation time and definitely no 401k. So the Café Muse reading series is a non-profit organization and it's staffed by all volunteers. We encourage you to buy our poets, Ellen and Kathy's books, and to donate to Café Muse. We'll put the links to purchase their books in the chat, and we'll also put a link to donate to Café Muse reading series. I am delighted to introduce my friend and fascinating poet, Ellen Sazzman, who will read from her debut poetry collection, The Shomer. The Shomer was a finalist in the 2020 Blue Lynx Prize, a semifinalist for the 2020 Elixir Press Anti-Venom Award, and a semifinalist for the 2019 Cotton Hill Press Poetry Award. She's received many other acknowledgements of her work, including a Pushcart Prize nomination and an honorable mention in the Allen Ginsberg Poetry Awards. She's been published in numerous journals, including Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Calyx, Poetica, and Sow's Ear Poetry Review. I could go on, but let's get into her reading. Her poems of the Shomer. They're like a treasure chest, a pirate's treasure chest that's full of life. Her eloquent use of words is captivating in their description of emotion, an event, an experience. The experience are hers, but they tap into your memory. You'll find love and tenderness, lament, family, ex-boyfriends, and one I believe is unique to Ellen, a boyfriend who was eaten by a bear. Well, you'll find objects and actions in her poems. A Formica table, the smell and feel of peeling an orange, a pink jewelry box with a ballerina that twirls, tickets to Ray Charles concert, lunch at a department store, a treasured heirloom lost. Her elegy to her mother taps into how we often feel at the death of someone we love. That moment of lament, tenderness, and love. In the first line of her poem to Chaya, she writes, "Before I can tell her I love her," and closes with, "At Shiva, I served rugula she baked and froze. She wrote down the recipe. I unfold the paper, smooth it gently." It is my pleasure to introduce Ellen Sazzman.
Thank you, Renee, for the beautiful introduction. Thank you, Café Muse, for organizing this event. I also want to express my appreciation to fellow poet Kathi Wolfe and to everyone who is listening in tonight. The poems in my collection, The Shomer, evolved around the concept of witnessing In the Jewish tradition, the shomer serves in the role of watchman. Among her responsibilities, the shomer is charged with safeguarding the body of the deceased against desecration before burial and guiding the spirit on its journey. More generally, the term shomer is used to describe an individual who acts as a guardian. The goal of the shomer is to witness and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The shomer's poems attempt to explore the vigil we all keep as witnesses to our own lives and the lives of others. I'm going to open with the poem that starts the book. You've already heard bits of it from Renee. To Chaya, 1915 to 2014. Before I can tell her I love her, before I am with her, and the eyes are closed at Torchinsky's funeral home, the body cleansed and covered. My mother must not be alone. I am out of town. The shomer guards her remains, $12 an hour. They want to dress her in a linen shroud. I bring the powder blue pantsuit, warmer polyester with pockets full of Kleenex. She's laid in a plain pine box, her remains escorted to the Garden of Remembrance, her casket lowered into the rift. We turn shovelfuls of dirt onto the wood, recite Kaddish, Aramaic praise for the God who intends death. We wash our hands, spiritual cleansing of her remains. What remains? Her hearing aids, batteries whining, bifocals, pink-rimmed dentures, silver strands caught in a curler, alligator stilettos, they gave her bunions, tarnished candlesticks carried from Poland, a ward pin for most productive sales lady, and what of her wedding ring? Flawed diamond I can't find in time, fallen between mattress and box spring of the 60-year-old marital bed. Before the eyes are closed, our last conversation is a long distance. Into the phone, she asks when I'm coming. Soon, I tell her, soon. I do not tell her I love her. At Shiva, I serve rugula she baked and froze. She wrote down the recipe. I unfold the paper, smooth it gently. My father and I visit the World War II Memorial, Washington, D.C., 2004, June. He leans on his cane to steady whatever cartilage his knees have left and limps to the southern arch inscribed with Pacific, the theater where he served as a machinist's mate, scared silly in the bowels of a destroyer, sweeping the ocean for Japs, his ebony curls and boyhood burning up in the blistering steam of the engine room until his medical discharge, less than honored for nausea and diarrhea. The memorial's architecture critiqued as Nazi fascistic, its granite slabs blank as to war's horrors and indignities my father kept secret until this, his last visit, when he insists we see the site on a hot day, swollen with humidity and perspiration of touring adolescence. They ask questions of any man who'd enlisted, and my father, usually a cipher, reticent to a fault, speaks about the responsibilities of citizenship and voting, and they listen open-mouthed to his profession of faith I never before heard him dare to make. Had I never asked the right way? And the morning sun glances off his bald pate, glistening around his sweated crown. Finally, the guy who never caught a break gets rewarded the respect he deserves. His story bronzed in bas-relief and joining the others projected on scored stone. We're going back further in time, back to Cleveland, Ohio, where I grew up. Unchaperoned at the department store luncheon, Cleveland, Ohio, 1957. It is the Silver Grill on Higbee's 10th floor. overlooking Public Square and the Soldiers and Sailors Memorial. It is the light-filled room lined with filmy curtains and arched windows. The hostess, a perfect page-boyed brunette, guides the trio to their table. Girls sheathed in nylons held up by delicate belts that cut into their skin, whose knees push under the table's damask dressing gown, whose smooth cordage press against the curve of iron filigreed chairbacks. Welsh rarebit, cream chicken, and Waldorf salad are placed before actress, dark in her uniform. This is where daughters on the cusp of growing up who still want to be like their mothers or who their mothers want them to be, lunch on special Saturdays. The girls survey the polished silverware, one fork too many, and the centered crystal vase holding a lone pink carnation. They sip iced tea in tapered glasses and order to share petit fours and the ice cream sundae decorated with a tiny paper parasol authentically made in Japan. This is when they swallow and dab damask napkins to their lips, glimpse their spoons reflecting, and hope they will be found beautiful someday by future husband. Returning to Washington, D.C. now. Baseball evening reliever. August swelters, fans slick with the sweat of triumph pack the metro train. From their seats, a boy and girl rise unbidden, offer their place to an elderly couple holding on to seasons long past. With thanks, bowed bodies accept the gesture, graceful as the game's last double play. And traveling to Jerusalem. Woman at Jerusalem's western wall. My forehead pushes against limestone, bared blocks push back, thickest parts of skull and wall, polished flint striking flint, burnished from hard rubbing or an ecumenical battering. The touch is cold, but afternoon sun warms exposed rock and my cloaked shoulders. Moonfields, half lit, half dark. Frenzied worshipers chant, dance in circles, a babble of languages and steps. Vibrations quake ground and air. They pulse through us, through the old city's quarters, no telling where one ends and another begins. My mind moves in ways my lips dare not. Abraham, Moses, Jesus, Mohammed, crushed together, shuddering, embracing, spinning at a frequency to message the heavens. Pulled by the stars, bodies accelerate, levitate, doves hover, disappear, shedding blessings across time. Seconds pass, maybe centuries, before we wash each other's feet. This next poem I'm going to read is Brisket Wars. It's in the poetic form called a sestina. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the form, sestina is from the Latin for sixth. The form is based on sixes. The sestina has 6 stanzas or paragraphs. Each stanza has 6 lines. The lines within each stanza have the same 6 end words, but arranged in a different prescribed order for each stanza. Homonyms are allowed. Brisket Wars is a bit of massaged family history that conflates the past and present. It's the longest poem I'm going to read, but you won't be tested on any of this. Feel free to listen for the 6 repeating words. Brisket Wars. The oven preheats to 325. Mama prepares the brisket. In the warming kitchen, she follows her recipe for the meat, as her mother and grandmother had, tenderly placing the slab in a roasting pan, pared fat side up, sprinkled with onions, salt, garlic, bloody flat side down, hiding the family's rough cut history. Mama proclaims the piece is prime first cut. She buys from Herb the butcher. His koshered brisket promises a sacred knowledge. He throws a bloody extra chunk into our package, already leaking from juicy meat. He winks at me, thick arms hovering, fat cheeks quivering, and hands our purchase over tenderly. At the Formica table, I smooth Doris Day paper dolls tenderly. Bad luck to tear thin skin. Along dotted lines, I cut evening gowns for figures that never fatten. Mama brags to her two sisters that she makes Cleveland's best brisket. I prod stringy strands, forklift a bite of gristly meat. Chew hard until I can swallow without gagging on the bloody legacy. Mama and her sisters escape Poland, its bloody pogroms in 1938. Batya the elder uses bone broth to tenderize and horseradish to spice up her beef. On Shabbos, she meets Mama and me for cake and coffee. At 13, Batya cuts out patterns 8 hours a day for a seamstress. Batya advises brisket should be choice, not lean. Do not trim the saddle of fat. That layer makes the dish delish. My tongue's coated with slick fat. Mama whispers her papa, the Zadie I never met, beats Batya bloody when she refuses to hand over her wages. They only eat brisket on Passover. He gambles the money away even when Batya tenders her living. Dorishki, the younger sister, doesn't cut her schooling short. She's his pretty favorite, but her meat's dry, tasteless, tough. Mama and Batya for once agree. Meetings over, done, all gone. No leftover recipes for how to cleave a fatted calf or breed a better beast. I move far, order takeout, and try to cut the cord clean, but can't staunch the bleeding. No recipe to dress wounds that remain so tender. Mama worries who'll marry me if I can't make a decent brisket. You can't overcook brisket. Stick it in the oven and the meat cooks itself. Men like a little fat to grab hold of as long as it's tender. Learn to make the bloody recipe. Be generous. Brisket's a forgiving cut, a very forgiving cut. This next poem I'm going to read is Klimt's first portrait of Adele Blockpower, 1907. The poem started out as my attempt to express my admiration for the beauty of this oil painting. The painting currently hangs in the Neue Gallery in New York City. It's a very sumptuous painting with gold leaf. And this is, I don't know if you can see, this is a partial shot of the painting. There she is. The more I researched the provenance of the painting, however, the more uncomfortable I became with my original intention. In the course of writing the poem, I ended up in a very unexpected place. And that is one of the interesting things about poetry, either reading or writing it. Sometimes a poem can lead you to a discovery that you may want to make or perhaps not. Klimt's first portrait of Adele Blockpower, 1907. Once upon a gold-leafed tapestry, she poses. The glow of iris amber dispels shadows from her face. A black coif halos her head. She is corseted in a gown of gilded fabric banded with triangles and the Egyptian god eye. Our Byzantine Madonna, yet her web of hands clasped not in prayer, but to hide a deformed finger. Her coiled arms carry ghosts, an infant son, 2 embryos, their deliverance untimely. A gem-encrusted choker cinches her hinge of neck, tightened by the husband, twice her age, a marriage arranged. Full-blown, her rose mouth speaking, we can only guess. Stripped of a Jew name, spit shine to a gloss, anonymous woman in gold displayed by the Third Reich, until reclaimed, now rehung among new masters. From a chaise of filigree, she watches us, watching her, the seducers, voyeurs, vandals. Our eyes imbibe her potent luminosity as we partake in the spoils of mastery. Give me two more. On a lighter note, your maker's direction. Bow your forehead to the little DeLonghi espresso maker. Pour water into the tank encased in black plastic. No chrome for this leaky middle-aged body standing up to the tide. Tamp 2 tablespoons of fine grains into the filter and release the bouquet of bean ripe with the spice of bazaars. Screw the filter snug in its holder into the boiler's underarm. The porcelain dwarf of a cup waits below. Switch on brew, a dense stream hissing out, dripping down. The bitterer, the better. Would that you could gulp it, dip your nose in it and snort, or shoot it up, but for the steam, the heat, the pressure. This last poem that I'm going to read is Something Blue for My Daughter-in-Law. It's going to be set to movement as part of the San Francisco Dancing Poetry Festival. Something blue for my daughter-in-law, a blessing. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. I want to make something blue for her to wear, a wreath of hyacinth to brave the waves of her long hair, a supple mask to catch her breath, a knitted scarf to warm her slender neck, some piece to hold, to protect, to share. A blue as sacred as the biblical, covering the covenant's ark, the formula for ancient Hebrew's secret dye forgotten, except for the boiled blood of snails. A cloth that can't be torn but spreads, a diaspora of blue, woven from the strands of the first day's light and dark, and the second day's ocean and firmament, a disguise to baffle the evil eye, an amulet for fealty, because she cries easily. Her tears filter down the blue margins of her page of inked vows, smudging her blued love, and there are tears in my son's pale eyes, in whose gaze she resides, a favored place, a shade that varies with sea and sky, changing with the weather from orchid to bluebell, iris to larkspur to violet, a blue to make her love me or thank me or at least forgive me, a blue girl too. They circle inside the song of 7 marriage blessings, but there is no blessing for blue. I make the one for rainbows, a promise of blue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. That was fabulous. So I want to rush out and make brisket immediately. I'm Ellen Cole, the other Ellen, and I'm delighted to introduce our next reader, Kathi Wolfe. Kathi is a good friend of mine who I met in the early 2000s at the Writers Center in a class taught by Michelle Wolfe. We were both in the early stages of our poetry journey, and we've been friends ever since. Kathi writes prose as well as poetry and is a successful journalist who frequently writes for the Washington Blade. She's the author of 3 poetry chapbooks: Helen Takes the Stage, the Helen Keller poems, published in 2008 by Pudding House Press, and a finalist in the Pudding House Press chapbook competition. The Green Light, published by Finishing Line Press in 2013. The Uppity Blind Girl poems, published by Brick House Press in 2015, and winner of the Stonewall chapbook competition. Her debut full-length collection, Love and Kumquats, came out in 2019, also published by Brick House Press. Kathi's poems have appeared broadly in anthologies, including Beauty is a Verb, The New Poetry of Disability, and QDA, a Queer Disability Anthology, as well as many in journals and magazines, including Poetry Magazine, The New York Times, Innisfree Poetry Journal, Beltway Poetry Quarterly, Word Gathering, and Breath and Shadow. Her honors include a Lambda Literary Foundation Writing Fellowship, a nomination for the Pushcart Prize, and writers' grants from the Vermont Studio Center. This year, Kathi will be reading at the Dodge Poetry Festival in October. In her poems, Kathi employs deep emotion, a wicked sense of humor, many references to popular culture, and a deep awareness of history and justice. Her poems in the voice of Helen Keller lift Helen out of the stereotypes of ableist history. Her uppity blind girl poems do the same in the voice of her sassy title character. Her poems about family, losses, and loves are poignant and powerful. Kathi told me she's deeply interested in writing poems that find the intersection between the different circles of her life: disability, queerness, love, loss, and spirituality. I think her poems succeed brilliantly in this. And I've talked enough. I'm going to stop and let Kathi read her poems to you. I'm delighted to present poet Kathi Wolfe.
Oh, thank you so much. That's such a wonderful introduction. I'm not sure if I can ever kind of live up to it, or thank you so much. Thank you so much to Café Muse. And Ellen, that was a wonderful reading. That was really wonderful. It's made me hungry both spiritually and also for brisket. So thank you. I first met Ellen. I think I first met both Ellens in the Writers Center way back in the year 2000s. I met Ellen Cole, I think this fall, Ellen, you and I, Ellen Cole, have been friends for 20 years. So, and you're still standing, which is very impressive. So my first poem is about what I did this year during my summer vacation. I've kind of taken a staycation during the pandemic. So this poem is about what I did. It's called Breaking Up with Myself. Breaking up with myself. It's not you, it's me. You're so special. Anyone with Stephen Hawking's brains, Warren Buffett's dough, who eats cheeseburgers in paradise with vegans, would be lucky to have you. I could live with the black bear dancing with your muse in your dreams. But Mother Teresa and Dr. Zeus bowling for dollars was over the top. The heart is a rock ambition, incessant praying to the God you do not believe in, was only human. But the name dropping, the meta moments nearly did me in. Still the jokes only you understood. The tingle of your skin, the romance of your ego and your id. Bygones can't be bygones, but could we still be friends? All my life, I've heard people talk about how they have spirit animals, and I've always wanted to one day have a spirit animal. Well, one day I got my wish and I had a spirit animal, but as is often the case, you don't always get what you wish for. This poem is called Wolf Dog Who Comes to My Dreams. Wolf Dog Who Comes to My Dreams. If only you were a respectable, heaven-sent spirit animal, you'd bark in soothing earth tones. Careful not to mess my hair up, you'd gently hug me against your well-groomed fur. Discreetly, you'd whisper words of comfort in my ear. Quietly, never too late at night, or in the middle of my dreams, you'd guide me through the valley of the shadow. Show me how to wash my grief's dirty laundry. Add fabric softener to my anxiety. But you're a wild wolf dog. Your matted fur is an ungodly orange with purple streaks. Its mangy smell stays in my pillow. You awaken me at dawn playing bagpipes in an unearthly key. The sound is enough to knock you down. I itch when you pat my head, yet I need your discordant music, your unholy stench. This next poem is called One Day If I'm Lucky. One day, if I'm lucky, do-gooders lusting to cure me won't ogle my badass eyes as I stand in line at the coffee cart where I want my caffeine fix, not their healing. Strangers won't stare at me as if I'm an exotic bird. I won't be asked to sing like Stevie Wonder or why I dare to kiss a girl at a bar when I should be safely at home, reading a Braille Bible, drinking warm milk. While wearing my black silk jacket and red stilettos, I'll dance with my lady with no warm milk or Braille Bible in sight. We'll sashay before the blindness, God. This next poem is called Celestial Navigation. And the epigraph is, on being asked to leave a poetry workshop because I am blind. Celestial Navigation. I am not used to blind poets, says the teacher, his Ray-Ban sunglasses sliding off his nose. They're flying in the dark, landing who knows where, right in your face, in your hair, on your stairs. Homer in his Red Baron jacket hits turbulence over Troy. Milton and Satan lock wings, turn somersaults on the runway. Borges nosedives into his labyrinth. My plane wobbles, hits an air pocket. I worry, how will I braille the sky? Until my radar, a sleek winged dapperback flies in. I soar over my coffee, hear the echo of the northern lights in its cream. Sometimes you write poems because you have to write them. You so wish that you didn't have to, but you do. This poem is called What I Saw. What I Saw. Putting my jacket on the coat rack in our chalk-smelling schoolroom, I saw only the orange warmth of our teacher, Mrs. Smith's voice. The yellow blur of Jimmy's pencil. White shapes, snowflakes, falling against the window. My funhouse eyes didn't see much. I wanted to see more. Jane's tangly red hair, Frankie's green-fingered socks, until the black shape swirled across my desk, slimier than any worm, creepier than any roach. It's a swastika of your Jew. It's a swastika for your Jew daddy, Johnny said. Then I didn't want to see anything anymore. This next poem takes place in southern New Jersey in 1971. It's called The Things I Couldn't Say to My Wife Dying in the Hospital. If only I'd robbed a bank to get the dough, to make your heart beat again. I wish I could tell you why the cop stopped me from telling you one last bad joke. But the joke was on me. You're not going anywhere, Jew, the cop said. I did all the laundry. Don't worry about the dog. The kids will feed her extra treats. There's food in the fridge for weeks. This year, I'll even remember our anniversary. If you are like me, you sometimes, even if you don't want to admit it, are drawn to reading horoscopes, at least, near the comics, online, or if you're old school in print. I mean, I've sort of sneak peeks at horoscopes ever since I've been a kid. Not that I believe them, but I love to read them. This poem is called God's Horoscope. God's Horoscope. On New Year's, you will resolve to eat fewer sweets, exercise, and be more patient with your children. By the third Thursday of January, you'll crave junk food and have no time to work out. Your offspring will leave home to start their own lives. Some of your followers will send you hate mail on Valentine's Day. How dare you bless those queers, they'll say. 2 religious wars will erupt on Good Friday. You'll break bread with some atheist friends. They want me to be Earth Mother, but I'm Diva Mom, you'll confess to yourself on Mother's Day. In August, smells of sickness and decay from Johannesburg to Jersey City will flood your nostrils. Sometimes I find it hard to believe in myself, you'll write in your journal. On Halloween, things will look up. The kids, the candy, especially the parade in Greenwich Village, will make you feel like taking the universe out for a spin. Your joy will be short-lived. In December, you'll have the holiday blues. On New Year's Day, you'll pull yourself together and start your memoirs. In the beginning was the word you'll tell yourself to save your soul. This next poem is a story that takes place in a diner. It's called Two-Hearted. Two-Hearted. You look like a boy, the child at the table next to me hisses. You don't smell pretty like a girl. He's a tow-headed kid out of a squeaky clean laundry ad. Yet his hiss fills me with dread. Will this tot sever my head if I don't smell like girly soap? Tommy, his father says, say you're sorry or no onion rings. It's weird, the dad tells me. Onion rings are his favorite thing. If only that were the weird thing. The little boy's venom batters my bones. An apology is bartered for onion rings. What monster has severed Tommy's head? Yet my own severed head can't deny its sins. When I was 5, I laughed at a fat lady. At 9, I made fun behind his back of my uncle with a high, girly voice. Now I'm a two-hearted twin. I want to swagger like a guy chasing babes, to be a girl in a cotillion, batting eyes. No matter how savory, I won't eat onion rings again or bite into an apology. This next poem is called On Your Last Birthday. On your last birthday, we had tea at the Ritz. You weren't into society. As a child, you wore jeans, played with your sock monkey, ignored your dolls. Jane Austen's novels left you cold. Only people in old movies care about tea parties, you said. Still, you were starring in your own film. Liver biopsy, chemo, 3, at most 6 weeks left before the movie ended. Wearing a coiffed blonde wig, blue cashmere scarf, you sipped Earl Grey tea and ate a scone with clotted cream. Some years ago at a poetry reading that I was part of, Karen met my brother. Karen Alanier has some kind of eagle eye, or we all know she has perfect perception, and she picked my brother out, and even though he didn't look at all like a poet, and kind of said, hey, to David, you're Kathy's brother. And David was like, how did you pick me out? So I've always kind of remembered that story. Anyway, this poem is called Talking to My Brother, 1 month after his death. Talking to my brother. You see with new eyes. You long to show me the beauty which I can't see from here, the medium says. You've become a photographer to see the river's colors. They're not found on any color reel here, the medium says. You need no digital camera. Your spirit lens does the trick. My grief for you is in the fridge, a roast big enough to feed everyone for Christmas and then some. It pushes everything from the milk to the mustard into the back. You're there, the medium says, a spice I can't taste yet, between the mail and the bread. Ever since I've been a little kid, I've loved the names of horses and horse races. This poem is called Derby Day. Derby Day. I went to sprint to the finish line, anointed with bourbon, cheered by ladies in frocks, drinking mint juleps, wearing peacock feathered hats. I want to be given a name that unlocks the tongues of angels. Godzilla's mom, Banshee's beloved, Frankenstein's babe. If I fall and must be shot, call me by my name. And today isn't Valentine's Day, so I'm going to read this one. This is not a love poem. That's the title of the poem. This is not a love poem. There were no lover serenades, candlelit dinners, bridal trains, towering cakes, solemn vows. One night we dressed in torn shorts, ripped tops, flip-flops. We'd forgotten to clean the cat's litter box. The light bulb above our heads went out. Next door, the neighbor's 6-year-old played chopsticks on the piano. Sure, let's get hitched, we agreed, digging into the mac and cheese. We exchanged ringdings. Our tongues will never forget the taste. And I'll end with this poem because you folks might not work hard enough, so I'm going to leave you with some more assignments. This poem is called To-Do List. To-do list. Make coffee, sort socks, walk around the universe and back, meet and greet the human condition, pack picnic lunch for your ghost, reshape the Moonlight Sonata, go to therapy, play Monopoly with grief, musical chairs with sorrow, write a poem that sends all the other poems to the nearest bar for a drink. As an afterthought, eat fire. Thank you so much. It was an honor to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathi. It was a very powerful reading. Now, the WordWorks Karen Allenier will lead a Q&A session with our poets.
Okay, well, I have a proposition for you two. We'll start with Ellen Sazzman, and here is what I was thinking. Poetry of witness, politics, and the human condition, and really politics in the most general term, because there's politics even in family interactions. Can you speak, Ellen, to any of those, in combination or otherwise? Because I think you especially delved into that, and I could see you had an underbelly of something going on with your mother.
I have been told by some very famous poets that it's impossible to write an explicitly political poem. I don't know if I agree with that. And I have tried some, but I didn't include any of them tonight. I do think there is a place for politics in poetry, but you have to be very careful not to offend anyone. And I think it's a problematic issue these days, what a particular poet can represent, especially if it's about, if you're talking about a group that you're not a member of. And there are always politics in families, so that I feel like I'm very practiced in witnessing the family politics, not resolving them. Kathi, what do you think?
About family politics? I think everything is political in the broad sense, in terms of political dynamics, and I think families are shaped by what's going on, I think culturally and politically, in the country, even if all the family members aren't conscious that they're being shaped in that way.
I mean, it is a tough situation to be alive and to have to deal with things that are thrown at you. But I do think that, relative to how the dynamics work among people, we always are thrust into philosophies and ways of thinking that we don't necessarily agree with. And it's even down to the brisket, as far as I could tell, you know. So
Well, it's every Thanksgiving dinner.
exactly, every Thanksgiving dinner, Kathi, that is for sure, definitely. I think I haven't seen any questions in the chat that I'm aware of, and I think I'd like to turn this back to Ellen, who is closing.
Kathi and Ellen, thank you both for a wonderful evening of poetry. Michael, your music as always was lovely, so thank you again. Thanks also to Karen Allen here and the WordWorks for sponsoring Café Muse. Renee, thank you for co-hosting and introducing Ellen. And thanks also to Henry for the technical magic, and to my fellow co-hosts, Renee Garrity, Leah Johnson, Henry Crawford, and Majda Gama. And most important of all, thank you, our wonderful audience, for being here. If you want to watch tonight's program again, it will be up on Café Muse's YouTube channel tomorrow, and you can extend your enjoyment by purchasing the poet's books. The link is in the chat, and telling others about the series. I hope you can join us for the next Café Muse program on Monday, October 3rd at 7 o'clock, featuring poets Zena Hashem Beck and Tim Seedless. Please make sure you're registered on our Café Muse website so you'll receive information on the event as well as the Zoom link. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I hope we'll see you again soon. Good night.